going on, people? How you doing? How you looking? How you feeling? I'm D and you're watching another coffee morning sessions with 1833. So I have a notepad here because I want to talk about, I have a topic to talk about. I wanted to make sure I get some dates and some names correct. But I just realised that I might have to explain why I got my rum in a Fanta Country Club bottle. And so let me explain that first. So this is what I'm drinking today. Got my coffee. The coffee is coconut and vanilla. It's supposed to be coconut vanilla of ice, but I was having it hot today because I didn't fancy having a cold coffee. So last night was the first night of the 26-27 Premier League season. Arsenal won 3-0. Yes, the Gunners are back. That is actually quite nice. So it should be good. Hopefully to be a good season for us. Hoping that we're able to retain the Premier League. I think there's only been 3 clubs that's ever done that. City, United and Chelsea. Of all the clubs that's won the Premier League, those are the only 3 clubs that have managed to do that. So hopefully we can follow and do that too. So yes, today in my rum I got Bruegel Triple Reserve. I reviewed this in Dominican Republic last March, April time. So I'll put a link to that review. Yeah, it's great reviews. I was at an Airbnb, had a terrace on the roof. It was a nice little video. So why I've got it in a bottle? So it's not because I was overweight, and I've been there before. So back in about 2017, 2018, I went to Panama. And I went to Panama, fell in love with Panama City. I bought so many bottles and variants of Abuelo Run. Got to the airport, overweight. I started pouring the glass bottles into water bottles, and it wasn't that. I wasn't in the airport doing that this time. This wasn't a weight problem. I don't have weight problems when I fly anymore because, especially when I fly those sort of distances, when I fly, my friends call me bougie because I have this rule. If I fly for more than 4 hours, 4.5, 5 hours, there's a bit of leeway in that, but hard 5 hours, borderline, start thinking about it at 4-hour flights. Anyway, if I fly for that, at least that length of time, I do not fly anything less than business class. Also, I have another rule holidays. If the flight is more than 6 hours, the holiday needs to be at least 10 days. Otherwise, a turnaround, it just doesn't make any sense. So, I was in Dom Rep last spring. And so, flew business class. Did I fly last year? I think the short leg was I think I did BA, yeah, it was BA to New York, and then from New York to Dom Rep, I believe it was not Delta, it might have been American Airlines, one of the American brands. So yeah, I think it was American Airlines. I vaguely remember being in their lounge, one of the lounges in New York. Anyway, it wasn't weight. It wasn't. I didn't have space. I brought a few rums back. And it didn't make sense. And I loved this rum so much when I was out there. I drank so much of it that it didn't make sense carrying a big glass bottle for such a small piece of rum. So it just made sense just pouring it into this Fanta bowl. I don't even recall it this being full when I left. I think it's been about halfway when I left Dom Rep, and I've just drank a little bit because I haven't bought another one yet. And I actually should try to buy this again. This was actually a really, really good rum. Anyway, I just spent like 5 minutes talking about nothing. So let me get to what I want to talk to you about this week. So as you should know, next weekend is a bank holiday weekend in London. And in the August bank holiday weekend, we have the Notting Hill Carnival. Cool, brilliant. And I've spoken about Notting Hill Carnival a little bit before, but I wanted to sort of just give the history of Carnival because I think some of the things that we're experiencing in the world today is happening, no, maybe not in London specifically, but in the UK is happening. I know in parts of America it's happened as well. And I think some of the environment we're fostering in around the world is very reminiscent to the environment that was taking place in the late 60s in the UK. So the very high level sort of scenario in the 60s, the early 60s, the early 50s, sort of mid 50s, basically that period after the reconstruction period after the Second World War, the UK went to all of its nations it still was the monarch over, and said, you know, we would like you to come back to the motherland to help rebuild. Now, I'm not going to go into it, but what also gets lost a lot in World War II history is the amount of the Commonwealth nations that fought with European nations. When history is taught about the Second World War, it's taught as though it was only white people fighting, that you didn't have Jamaicans, you didn't have people from the Caribbean, you didn't have Africans fighting with the motherland in different theatres of war. So that's a different conversation, but a conversation that should be had as well. Anyway, so after the war happened, UK went to the Caribbean and said, hey, come back to motherland, come to the motherland, help us rebuild. So that's what happened. So we had this generation in the UK called what was called the Windrush generation. That was one of the first huge cruise liner ships that brought thousands of Caribbean people into the UK, specifically places like London, Bristol, Liverpool, big port towns. And so in London specifically, you had these clumps of parts of London that were heavily influenced, lots of migrant communities, just like you have today. Today you come to London, you have areas in London where you have lots of people from Bangladesh or Pakistan. You've got places with big, so that's mainly like, if you go to East London, you've got lots of big H communities. If you're in South London, there's quite a few black communities. There are pockets of West London with like Japanese communities. In and around Elephant and Castle, you've got a big Ecuadorian and I think Colombian. You've got places like Stockwell and like in and around Lambeth North area, you've got big Portuguese, not Lambeth North, Vauxhall, that sort of area. You've got a big Portuguese community, you've got a little Portugal down there. So London has these pockets of communities. And one of those pockets in the 50s and 60s, one of those pockets was Notting Hill, that sort of central West London part of London. And back then, now you go to Notting Hill now, you think of the film, you got lots of, I work in the area as well, so you get lots of tourists coming around there, look at these lovely big houses, these colourful houses, all white. I try to pop some pictures of them in there as well. Now, Notting Hill is highly affluent. When I work around there, you see, I see Bentleys, Ferraris, Porsches all day long. Right. And funnily enough, Waymos, because it's a testing area. But back then it was a really rundown area. And then because you had this influx of people from the Caribbean, you hear the same racial arguments today that you're hearing back then about, they don't integrate, they don't learn our customs, there's so many of them, they get all these free housing, and it's never been a thing. These things, these talking points, when you hear them again, it's like, and you also watch some of these archive interviews of people in the streets and news stories, you hear exactly the same words coming out again. It's like, it wasn't true then, it's not true today. Anyway, what was a catalyst for the Notting Hill Carnival was the murder of a gentleman called Kelso Cochrane on May the 17th on Southam Street. Now, the equivalent of this, what I grew up in my time, was the murder of Stephen Lawrence, where it just seemed to be, in both scenarios, you have a racially motivated murder. You have the police not taking much time to investigate to find the killers. You have the community being perpetrated as the instigators, the community being vilified in the press and what have you. It was so similar what's happened in the 50s, what happened in the early 90s. The only difference is with Stephen Lawrence, at least some people have been found guilty and gone to prison. With the Kelso Cochrane case, nobody's ever been found guilty. The murderers of this young man have been brought to justice, never stood trial. So that's what happened in that May 1959. And then a lady called Claudia Jones, I don't know how she managed to do this. I haven't really seen how she managed to do this, but she managed to organize a Caribbean carnival in St Pancras Town Hall, but also managed to have the BBC broadcast it as well, which I think must have been amazingly difficult back then as well. But she managed to do this. And this is what people really see as the seedlings to what blossomed into the Notting Hill Carnival. So she did that in 1959, and over the next few years, she and a group of people managed to organise more of these indoor sort of carnival festival events throughout London. And then the first version of what we call the Notting Hill Carnival out in the streets of Notting Hill took place in 1966. And I just want to get the names right, so I'm looking down here. And that was organised by someone called Ruane Lassette and some other local residents. And basically, Ruane was able to organise this event around Notting Hill, get some famous steel pan bands around, and they sort of walked around and had a street party in and around Portobello Road in Notting Hill. And that was the start of what we know today as a Notting Hill Carnival. Now, the Notting Hill Carnival, because it takes place every weekend, every bank holiday, every August bank holiday weekend every year in the streets of Notting Hill. It's the second biggest street carnival in the world. The only thing that's bigger than it is Rio Carnival. It's the biggest carnival of this type in Europe. So to give you some scale, they say over 1 million people come to the carnival over the 2 days in a bank holiday. So to give you this grandeur of this is a huge undertaking. And there's lots of events in and around it. You've got events on a Friday night, you've got after parties, lots of things happening. It's a real big event. So I want to get that history. And I spoke a few weeks ago about, it was Leicester Carnival, I believe. And what was disappointing to me about that carnival was that the fact that it had a small street procession but ended up in a park. And I'm really concerned that the similar thing is going to happen to the Notting Hill Carnival, because as I mentioned previously, Notting Hill is now much more affluent. Over the 50 odd years that it's been running, the area's become gentrified. People don't like it. People have more voting power, more power, and between them and the police, it's becoming more and more difficult to organise. More restrictions, time restrictions, that sort of thing that never used to exist when I was younger. And I can envisage a future where it's just held in Hyde Park, which is maybe a mile, 2 miles down the road from the area. It'd be ticketed events. I can imagine it being very ticketed, not just being open, and I wouldn't want that to be a thing. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that. I'm not sure if I'm going yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to go. I don't really go much these days. I think I went last in 2022. I think that's the first time it opened. I think it closed down for lockdown. That was the first one after COVID. I went to that one just to sort of just get back into it again. And I've not been back since. And it was a long time before that was when I was last there. So I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of share that story of the Notting Hill Carnival, give you sort of an understanding of the environment of the time, sort of link it back to, it seems like a similar environment we're in today with the same sort of, we have these racial relations that we're race tensions in parts of the UK, parts of London, less in London but more the UK, more some outskirts parts of London, perhaps like Essex, that sort of thing, and just wonder. It shows that sometimes something good can come from something bad. You know, this man's death, Kelso Cochrane. You could probably argue that if he wasn't murdered, we'd never have the carnival. And so, you know, I'm not saying I'm glad he died, of course not, but I'm glad that something positive could be developed after such a tragic incident as occurred. And I hope that we don't have any more tragic incidents. I think if people spent more time just understanding how history is just repeating itself, and history does repeat itself, we probably won't make the same mistakes. But I just want to leave that there. Thanks for watching today. I don't know what I'm doing next weekend. So if I make a video, we'll see. I don't know if I'm doing the carnival or not. So there may or may not be a video next week.